Thanks for staying with us. So before we go into our Thursday GC, it's important for us to take on this memorable experience of the General Murtala Muhammed. On July 29, 1975, he assumed the leadership of Nigeria through a bloodless coup, marking a pivotal moment in the nation's history. His brief but very impactful tenure, July 1975 to February 1976, is widely remembered for his decisiveness, bold reforms, and a fierce commitment to national progress. In this segment, we will be celebrating the 50th anniversary of General Murtala Muhammed's legacy and Nigeria's anti-corruption fight. Joining us on the studio, from our Abuja studio, is the editor, Nigeria Yearbook and Who is Who, Ibrahim Ado-Kurawa. Welcome to the show, sir.
Yes, good morning. Thank you very much.
Good morning. It's so good to have you joining us this morning. It was important for us to have this conversation for 50 years in celebration and in honor of General Murtala Muhammed. Very short but very impactful tenure in government. And I think one of the key areas that was quite highlighted was his decisiveness towards anti-corruption. What were some of your own view, the general's most significant achievements during his tenure?
Well, as you have said, he was very decisive in his anti-corruption fight, which was universally acknowledged, and he was exemplary because he took decisive decisions, and what happened after his demise testified to his sincerity and patriotism, because he left very minimum property after his death, which was very crucial. Now you have public officers amassing a lot of wealth, land grabbing and what have you, and many other things. But in his own regard, he didn't have anything. And he was very forthright in all his efforts. He established the Public Complaints and Anti-Public Complaints Commission so that people can bring their grievances to the state, which was very rare, and it was the first time. So these actions in area of anti-corruption, in transparency and accountability were new to Nigeria when he brought them.
Let me do a follow-up on that, because if we try to juxtapose his decisiveness to the current president's decision to remove subsidy and all the other bold reforms that he has taken on, a lot of Nigerians have criticized him for doing quite a bit of bold reforms without recourse to the effects of the people. And if we recall also, the general during that time, General Murtala Muhammad, his decisiveness, sacking 10,000 civil servants, regardless of their going on their incompetence, their age, without benefits. There was a lot of criticisms during that time too. And people were against the fact that he was able to just get rid of or even totally reform the civil service. So I would like you to look at both scenarios. Do you think our current president's decision to make certain bold reforms could also eventually be appreciated in future, or do you think he could have done it a bit better, just as the general did 50 years ago?
Well, there are two different scenarios which we shouldn't compare in this respect. If you had brought the issue of Murtala's economic reforms, then it's okay, we can compare them. But now we are talking of anti-corruption, and you are bringing President Tinubu's economic reforms. They are quite different. If we are going to compare, maybe if President Bola Tinubu has been as transparent and as accountable as Murtala, they take harsh decisions that really matter. It's what the purpose behind them. And Murtala's economic policies were not as harsh as Bola Tinubu's economic policies, because there are different times. When Murtala became the president, they reviewed the National Development Plan, because the initial development plan was based on import substitution, and they wanted to establish capital industries. So if you are going to bring something in terms of economic policies of Murtala and then economic policies of Bola Tinubu, how do they compare? Is Bola Tinubu now trying to bring profound economic changes? Then that's when we should talk about it. Murtala brought profound anti-corruption measures. Is Bola Tinubu bringing profound anti-corruption measures? That's the only way we can compare.
Let's stay on the anti-corruption measures, sir. So let's stay on them. Let's stay on the anti-corruption measures. You'd expect that such a huge measure in, purging the civil service of certain miscreants, if you allow my language, would change the way we see corruption. But 50 years on, we are still where we are. We still criticize ourselves to be corrupt. Do you think that his methods were really productive? My point is that, would it have been better if it was, oriented, changing the orientation of the people as opposed to, just getting rid of the people? Did he need to change the mindset or build the mindset of the younger generation so that we don't have a repetition of these issues after 50 years?
That's what I told you. Murtala was exemplary. When he came, the previous government was full of pomp and pageantry, but he decided to live a simple life so that he can show people that he can live such life without aggrandizing public wealth. So in terms of whether it was continued or not, that's not his own making, because the people that succeeded him, they tried their best, but unfortunately they derailed. So you cannot hold him responsible for his for their actions. What he did, he was exemplary, which is very important. Now you have leaders that cannot even stay in Nigeria for their medical treatment. You have leaders that spend a lot of money on personal life, which Murtala never did. He didn't even have a convoy. He was living like a common person, which is part of orientation. And if that had continued, we will not be where we are. But they said, okay, they cannot sacrifice, because his life was based on sacrifice. And theirs is not about sacrifice. Theirs is about comfort. So we cannot blame him for sacrificing his life, for sacrificing what he has, and then the subsequent generation decided to be comfortable with their positions and offices. So it's quite different. I'm not trying to be polemical, but it's a very clear issue. If the people in power can be as exemplary as Murtala, I think Nigeria will not have been where it is. And previously, even before Murtala came, what Tafawa Balewa and their generation were doing was quite different. They were not like those that succeeded them. So you see, it's not somebody's fault if your successors didn't do well. And at least he tried to establish the institutions that will bring about his ideas. One of his most important legacies is the presidential constitution, which the sole purpose is to unite the country, to have one Nigeria, which is more important for us to regard ourselves as citizens, not as people that represent ethnic groups, which is very crucial in our body fabric and our political development.
Thank you so
it's
much.
It's not just window dressing, saying that you are this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. So I feel like I didn't know much about this particular history. That's the honest truth. And I'm happy that we are using this platform to educate Nigerians, especially because I'm 40. He had gone before I was even born. So the only thing I know about General Murtala Muhammed is that when I go to the airport, his name is there. And I would like you to share what we can do. How can we apply the lessons from General Muhammad's leadership, the sacrifices he made? How do we raise that legacy and make it contemporary and make it worthy of emulation in the world we're living in today, where there is obvious gap? Can you share some ideas with us, sir?
Yes, well, I think what we need to is to hold our leaders accountable. We must insist that they have to sacrifice. We must insist that life should not continue as usual. If somebody says, I'm going to bring about change in the economy of the country, then we hold him. What have you done? You have spent 1 year, 2 years, 4 years. What have you done? If we cannot hold them accountable, then we will not be able to progress in any way, since they are not willing, most of them, to sacrifice as Murtala has sacrificed. So the most important thing we should do as citizens, because that's what is important in democracy, to hold leaders accountable. Once this accountability, once this, oversight is not there, then we will not have anything. If the institutions of the state are compromised, the executive already is the leader, and then it compromises the the legislature, it compromises the judiciary, then you do not have a democracy. You are just going to have anarchy. We as citizens, we have to rise up and say, no, enough is enough. Not as people from different tribes and what have you. That's what is holding us back in this country. And Murtala was like that. He was a Nigerian and he worked for Nigeria. So we must hold our leaders accountable and tell them that, no, we want you to be Nigerians and work for the common man. But if we just allow them to be manipulating us, then we are not going anywhere.
Yeah, okay, so when I was reading his story, there was something that caught my attention. I know that if he had stayed long, most of our children will have their mother's names in their this thing, because his mother's name is part of his name. And guess what his mother's name is?
What? Your name.
Yeah. So, so he created states. The reason why he created states was to solve certain problems in Nigeria. Do you think right now, the states that he created, do you think that they can stand on, they are performing like the way he expected the states to perform? Are they doing the way he wanted them to perform? And the reason why he created them, do you think is happening just the way, the policies and everything, are they going the way he wanted them to go?
Well, you see, the reasons for creating states has been there since before the First Republic. The Wilk Commission, which was established on the issue of minority rights. So these agitations continued even after the creation of 12 states. We had 4 during the civilian era in the First Republic, 4 regions. So these 4 regions were made into 12 states. But these agitations continued. So the only way that it could be to bring about peace and progress in the country is to accommodate some of those agitations, at least the ones that were genuine. So Murtala tried, he did what he could, and 7 states were created. Some of them have been very big, and they have also been divided again into other states. Like, for example, Gombe, Bauchi is now Gombe and Bauchi. Borno is now Borno and Yobe. Okay. Gongola is now Adamawa and Taraba, and Ondo is Ikiti and Ondo. Ogun is still there. Oyo is Oyo and Oshun. So something like that. It continues. People still continue to agitate. Right. But the only way that we can resolve this problem is to have citizens, not people who are just regional or are just static in their own thinking. Right. And then we have to bring about economic reforms that will make the government more accountable. The government allow the private sector to thrive, not what we are having now, with so many policies that are inconsistent with development. So that's the only way that states can be what they are. But federations all over the world have different ways of managing their diversities.
Let me talk about his bold foreign policy. He was quite assertive and focused on strengthening Nigeria's leadership across Africa. You know, in your view, do you think Nigeria still holds that leadership role, where we are liberating other African countries from the shackles of colonialism?
Yes, Murtala's famous speech, Africa has come of age, when he decided to support Namibia, Angola, South Africa, so that they could be free. It was one of the most bold decisions in the history of Africa. And over time, Nigeria contributed a lot. We contributed in ECOMOG, we have been contributing in ECOWAS, and many others. After him, Nigeria continued the struggle to help emancipate South Africa and Zimbabwe. So at least what he started was quite great, because one of the reasons why they shut him down was because of his Afrocentric policy. He never considered the Europeans as, or Europe as the centerpiece of our foreign policy, and which was very, very radical and dramatic. If that had continued, at least Africa will not be where it is. And one of our major problems is the inability of the African continent to forge ahead, to have integration and economic development, because we are not united. So they keep on exploiting us. The Europeans have exploited us for 500 years, and unfortunately now we may go into the hand of the Chinese. So, and it's all over Africa. If Africa cannot find its ways out, then we'll have problem. Before the coming of the Europeans, we are better than where we are. For example, in Kano, we are producing 10 million sandals a year. Now we don't do anything. and our leaders are not doing anything because they don't have the vision. So it's very critical. We have to educate the young generation to inform them that these things are possible. Without Mullah, maybe Africa might not have been
Let
me get in one question for you. Go ahead.
You know, he had laudable visions, and I think documenting it would have been nice at the time. So like it's a master plan that subsequent governments would have followed. But my colleague had said that, you know, most of us were young children at the time that he held office, and we also were not even born. You know, and so we don't have a full grasp of what he really achieved or what he did. Can you, aside his anti-corruption, you know, drive and the foreign policy, can you highlight most of his successful achievement that he had while in office?
Well, you know, Murtala spent just 200 days, which has been remarkable in Nigeria. Nobody has done that. He created 7 states within that time. He took the decision of the Federal Capital Territory, and most importantly, the presidential constitution. So these are very critical in terms of political re-engineering of the country. He was focused on this, on the unity of the country, because what Nigeria suffered from has been the issue of this lack of unity of purpose, people viewing themselves as citizens, which is very, very critical. And he did it within 200 days. Everyone appreciated. And then in terms of governance, he was exemplary. So somebody to achieve something for 200 days, and others will spend almost a decade ruling, you cannot compare them. You cannot talk of infrastructure in 200 days. You cannot talk of even what have you. But he brought policies in education that established more universities. He brought policies in economic development, decongesting the ports, which was very critical. Immediately after he assumed power, he established a task force under Colonel Shehu Eradua that decongested the ports. There were several ships bringing cement and what have you. And in terms of his industrial policies, he was thinking inward, how do you develop the capital industries, which was very critical. But you cannot do all these things in 200 days. You can take decisions, policy decisions, which were very critical, and they have. You can imagine his most important policy decision has not been still there in Nigeria. It has shaped Nigeria's politics. So that alone is a major achievement in 200 days. It takes people more than that to even decide. You can see some people will not even form their cabinets. It will take them 100 days to form a cabinet. But Murtala was able to take far-reaching decisions that have shaped the country in 200 days.
I know you've tried to answer
policy
this question. We have to run up, unfortunately. But thank you so much, sir, for coming this morning to remind Nigerians of the legacy of the General Murtala Muhammed 50 years on. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. I'm really grateful.
All right, let's go on a short break. When we come back, move on to our Thursday topics. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.